Good afternoon. My name is Charles Jonathan Cobb. I usually go by Jonathan. That's me. I am doing the Durham College Social Services Worker Program, and the class I'm taking is pharmacology and behavior. And the topic of my video this week is harm reduction. Harm reduction for me is something that is probably like most Canadians my age. It is totally different. It's something you don't really think a whole lot about. Um, I grew up in Muskoka as a kid, Muskoka, Ontario, back in the 60s and 70s, and it was a very, drugs were almost never heard of. You didn't think much of it. I went directly from living out in the country in Muskoka to joining the military. I did 35 years in the military. And again, military culture might have been a little bit of pot here and there, but there was nothing major. And it was sort of frowned against because it wasn't allowed in the military. So I've gone from two closed societies, I'd call it, where drugs were not prevalent to now that I'm retired, part of my retirement package from the military is education. That's why I've taken the social services worker program to try to maybe give back a little bit to the community where I live and a little more education for myself. So for me to learn a little bit about drugs, it has been a complete total eye opener. One of my first placements for the social services worker program was working at a homeless shelter. Safe and Sound Grey Bruce is a homeless shelter located in the downtown of Owentown, Ontario. It's an extremely busy homeless shelter. It's the only one within, I believe it's about 150 kilometers all the way around it. There are no other homeless shelters. And unfortunately, in our area, we have what I would call a drug epidemic. There is horrible the amount of drugs and the lack of support. So my first experiences at the homeless shelter was with drugs, and my first few days there, I was trained in the harm reduction center, and I started working in a harm reduction center. And again, stereotypical shut-in sort of person, I I didn't think much of it. I thought this is, it's not really right, giving providing people the ways to do drugs and to shoot up. And then I found out how much of an epidemic it was, and I thought, wow, this is something that is very interesting, sad all at the same time, and it's something that we really need to do something about. So I started working with the harm reduction program. So what I'm going to do for you today is I'm going to go through some of the things that the harm reduction program does, a few stats, eating programs like food, believe it or not, and just a lot of different things like that. So I'm going to start off where I'm going to explain to you a little bit. Actually, I'll start off with some quick stats, if I could. Um, Harm reduction is giving out the drug paraphernalia to do drugs safely. And safely meaning not just so much overdosing and that sort of thing, but say bloodborne diseases like hepatitis. Believe it or not, the a strong dose or high dose for hepatitis C medication is approximately $54,000 for one person. I mean, for a strong dose, just when a person first gets hepatitis C, it's $54,000. Now, hepatitis C is a bloodborne disease, which means using dirty needles, you contract hepatitis C. Now, I did a little bit of research, a bit of studying on good old Google, and I found that a box of 100 1cc syringes is, believe it or not, $22.99, which works out to 22 cents per needle. 22 cents. So for me, or for a program to provide a user a 22-cent syringe could help save them from getting hepatitis C. Now, if that doesn't sound like too much, think about that on our healthcare system. We're providing a 22-cent syringe versus a $54,000 bill for hepatitis C medication. that would come out of our Ontario and our Canada healthcare system. That is a astounding amount, 22 cents. So that's one of the reasons I'm all about the harm reduction program. I think it's an awesome program. So what I have here is I'm going to show you just a few things that we do with our harm reduction program. Now, one of the big ones I found working at harm reduction program is people would sort of try to almost sneak in to get their supplies and they'd leave again. So self-esteem was a really, really big part of it. So what we do with our program is any harm reduction supplies that are given out to people, we put them in a plastic bag so they don't have to walk out of the building with them, just their gear, the cooking gear, whatever, in their hand. Put them in a nice big plastic bag so it's much easier for them to carry them out, and they don't look like they're doing something wrong once they go out the door. It's a lot of it I find is about self-esteem. So inside these bags we have a variety of different things. Everything comes in nice little handy bags. All right. This inside this bag right here is anything that you need for using meth. So methamphetamines, drug that is extremely, extremely addictive. It's inhaled. So if you're not doing it properly, you're using dirty equipment, you're inhaling a lot of really, really bad things. So inside these bags are sterilized, everything you need for doing your drug of choice, which is meth, safely. Going to another bag here, we have a bag for doing crack cocaine. Crack cocaine can be, as you know from our classes, it can be smoked, it can be ground down, it can be snorted or inhaled. There's many different ways of using it. But we have all the paraphernalia inside for safely using crack cocaine. And again, everything is put inside a nice bag that is, it's all sealed up, it's all kept clean. Comes along to our IV drug users. We have long and we have short base needles. So long needles and short needles are basically the length of the needle itself at the end of the hypodermic needle. Now, the way it's been explained to me by the Public Health Service is between long and short needles are chronic IV drug users, their veins shrink and they're a lot harder to find. So they're not quite as plump. So they need a longer needle to get in to find the vein. The short needles are people who are maybe not quite as experienced and have a little more plumper veins, and they can use a shorter base needle to get into the veins themselves. Now, one thing about these ones here, because it's all bloodborne, is safe injection sites on your body. There's a lot of bad places and good places to do. So what we do is they come up with these really cool little handy charts, and it's all green, yellow, and red coded. So green is good place, yellow is you try to avoid it, and reds are not so good places. Basically, these are sites on your body which are recommended for use, and ones are not recommended for you. Just little tidbits of information as we go along the way. Now, the most expensive, or sorry, expensive, the most important thing that we have is our naloxone kits. Now, our naloxone kits, again, these are all free. Anyone can get these when they want to come in, but these have the Narcan spray inside. And Narcan is a counteracting drug that counteracts and revives patients who have overdosed on drugs. They're all very, very, very simple, easy to use. They come with a kit inside with all kinds of information on exactly how to use them and what to do and what not to do. They come all very, very self-explanatory. They come with a face shield in case your person um, needs resuscitation. They have a face shield. They have a pair of gloves to put on. They're very, very important. And one of the very important things I find on here is we have a card from the province of Ontario explaining the Good Samaritan Act. So basically, the Good Samaritan Act covers people who are helping somebody who has overdosed on drugs. If that person happens to unfortunately pass away, the Good Samaritan Act um, looks after that person, um, so that they don't bear the brunt or the blame of someone passing away. I can read it for you. The Good Samaritan Act provides or protects people who call 911 and others present during an overdose from being charged with simple possession, pre-trial release charges, probation order, conditional sentence, or simple possession parole violations. A lot of the time, people who are trying to help other people have been using with them, and they don't want to get in trouble. So they tend to run away and leave their friends to die. Where if they read this, the Good Samaritan Act, it protects them while they are helping their friend, which to me is so important. So as we keep moving along, we have some other really interesting things. Now, what I found very interesting or very important about our harm reduction center is people's health and welfare. Coming into the homeless shelter, you will find that there are people who are very hungry due to chronic drug use of inhaling drugs. Their teeth are in very poor condition, and it makes it hard for them to eat. So what we do with our programs is we have our what's called soft chew snacks. Our soft chew snacks are things like yogurt, cheese strings, things that are very good for you, high in protein, but they are very simple, very easy to chew. We also provide a lot of fresh fruit. People come in and what they need is something to pick them up and something they can eat fairly easy, and it's all very portable. So these little programs, they come in the door, they get a nice cup of coffee, they get a nice snack bag, and they get their supplies to take with them, and then they go and they leave. One of the big things we provide is we provide a lot of information. Now, information, we find now that we're getting a lot of younger people who are coming into our shelter looking for supplies. A lot of the people have had very little. They're unfortunately they're addicted to the drugs, but they have a lot of times they're not. Unfortunate to say they're not using the drugs properly, so they're overdosing. They're having used the naloxone, the Narcan. So we provide them with a lot of information and a lot of things. The internet is our friend on this. We can download things like this: safe use of crack cocaine. Um, it's unfortunate we have to download things like that off the internet to use, but that kind of information is invaluable for people who are having problems with addiction, and they can find out how to do all these things. Um, this one here, harm reduction procedures. Again, if you go on the internet and if you type in anything to do with harm reduction, you'll come up with a plethora, if I can use that fancy word, of sites where you can go on and you can learn how to use any kind of drug that you want safely, relatively safely. You can find any kind of outreach programs, mental health programs, addiction programs, all that sort of thing. So all these kind of things are all on the internet, and we provide as much information as the person coming in the door wants to get. We can provide almost anything information wise. Um, Coming from a background where I wasn't really involved with a lot of this kind of thing, it's been a total eye-opening experience. And I find harm reduction is something that's drug addiction. It's an epidemic, obviously, and to learn a little bit about harm reduction, to be a little more open, um, just to learning, I find is what it's all about. A lot of people come in the door and they're scared, they're addicted to drugs, they're in trouble, and to simply sit down with them, have a cup of coffee, a little bit of pure support, provide them with as much information as we can and as much safe, clean product to use the drugs safely. That is, I find the best thing we can do. Um, doing a placement, for me, doing a placement, student placement in a homeless shelter was extremely important. I think anyone taking this course, to me, it should be mandatory that people go and work in a place like this just to experience and observe what harm reduction can do and all the great things that it can do. Anyways, thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been um, informative, sorry, and You have a great day.